Spider-Man Brand New Day may have become the biggest movie of the year because Marvel actually removed some of its biggest moments. Not because they weren't good, but because they would have completely changed what this movie was trying to be. And once you hear what almost made the final cut, you'll probably never watch Brand New Day the same way again. So let's break everything down. First, let's talk about why this movie has completely shocked the industry. Nobody expected Brand New Day to explode like this. Within just days, it became the highest grossing movie of 2026, passing $1.15 billion worldwide, breaking the all-time opening weekend record with around $360 million domestically, and even setting records for biggest opening day, biggest Monday, and biggest Tuesday. That's absolutely insane, especially considering it accomplished most of this without IMAX screens across North America. So why are audiences connecting with it so much? The answer starts with something Marvel rarely does anymore: restraint. Instead of throwing dozens of cameos at the audience every 5 minutes, Brand New Day focuses almost entirely on Peter Parker. And honestly, that decision changed everything. The opening of the movie immediately feels different from the previous trilogy. 4 years have passed since No Way Home. Nobody remembers Peter Parker anymore. He lives alone in a tiny attic apartment. No Aunt May, no MJ, no Ned, no family, no real friends. The only thing keeping him company is his AI assistant while he spends every single day trying to be Spider-Man. The movie takes its time here. It wants you to feel how empty Peter's life has become before the action even begins. And that's exactly why the emotional moments later hit so much harder. But here's something most fans don't know. According to director Destin Daniel Cretton, this movie originally looked completely different. The very first assembly cut reportedly ran close to 3 hours. That wasn't the intended movie. It was simply every scene put together before editing. Once they started trimming the film down, some massive sequences disappeared, including one of the biggest Spider-Man battles they had ever planned. Originally, Marvel designed an enormous multi-villain showdown. Several classic Spider-Man villains were planned to appear together in one huge action sequence. Concept art was created, fight choreography was discussed, large sections were mapped out, but in the end, the entire sequence was removed. Why? Because Cretton believed it distracted from Peter's emotional journey. Instead of another giant CGI battle filled with fan service, he wanted audiences focused on one thing: Peter slowly learning he cannot carry the entire world alone. Looking back now, that decision may have been exactly what made the movie work, but that wasn't the only thing left behind. Another reported deleted scene would have answered a question many fans had while watching the movie. After one of Peter's major battles, he was originally taken to a hospital. Doctors carefully removed parts of his damaged suit, while making sure his mask stayed on so nobody could discover his identity. During that sequence, Peter briefly crossed paths with Claire Temple, played by Rosario Dawson. Nothing huge happens, no giant cameo, just a quiet interaction between two exhausted people trying to help others. It sounds small, but scenes like that would have added even more humanity to Peter's journey. Unfortunately, it never made the final cut. Marvel also explored much darker concepts during development. Early versions reportedly leaned much harder into Peter's mutation, longer nightmare sequences, more disturbing transformations, even stronger comic inspiration from the other storyline. Some early ideas pushed Peter much closer to becoming a terrifying man-spider-like creature, before eventually finding himself again. Most of those ideas were scaled back, not because they were bad, but because Marvel wanted the movie to stay accessible while keeping the emotional focus front and center. And honestly, I think that balance is one of the biggest reasons audiences have embraced this film. But we're only scratching the surface, because the biggest mystery in the entire movie isn't actually a deleted scene, it's the ending. That post-credit scene has completely changed how fans are looking at Spider-Man's future, and there are already multiple theories about what Marvel is secretly setting up for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. And trust me, that's where things get really crazy. So if you're enjoying this breakdown so far, hit subscribe and like for more updates on the channel, guys. Now let's move on. Everything we've talked about so far leads to one moment. A scene that's less than a minute long, yet it might completely change Spider-Man's future forever. If you thought Brand New Day ended with the final battle, think again. Because Marvel saved its biggest mystery until literally the last seconds of the movie. And once you really understand what that ending means, you'll realize this isn't just the ending of Brand New Day, it's the beginning of something much bigger. After the credits finally finish rolling, we don't see Peter, we don't see Dr. Doom, we don't see another superhero cameo. Instead, Marvel gives us one of the simplest post-credit scenes they've ever made. Ned opens the Spidey Tracker app that he built earlier in the movie. The app immediately detects a Spider-Man signal. At first, everything looks completely normal. The tracker tracker places the signal somewhere in Queens. But then, something strange happens. The camera begins pulling farther and farther away. New York disappears. Then the United States. Then Earth itself. Moments later, the moon is left behind too. The app continues searching into complete darkness. Suddenly, the signal disappears. The screen glitches. For just a second, it looks like the tracker has completely lost Peter. Then, one final notification appears. Location found. A tiny Spider-Man icon appears floating somewhere in deep space. Then, Spider-Man will return. And that's the end. No explanation, no answers, just questions. So, what does it actually mean? Right now, there are several huge theories floating around. The biggest one is that Peter has somehow become connected to the events leading into Avengers Doomsday. We already know Brand New Day takes place before Doomsday in the MCU timeline. Marvel has been carefully building toward that crossover, and this ending feels like the bridge between Peter's grounded street-level story and the massive multiversal war that's about to begin. But another theory might be even crazier. Some fans don't believe that tracker is following Tom Holland's Peter at all. Remember, the app never actually confirms whose Spider-Man signal it found. Because of that, many fans believe Marvel intentionally left the door open for another Spider-Man somewhere in the multiverse. Could it be Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or someone we've never met before? Right now, nobody knows. And that's exactly why people can't stop talking about this ending. There's also another detail that many viewers noticed. Throughout the tracker sequence, the signal glitches multiple times before locking on. Some fans think those glitches aren't random. Instead, they could be hinting that reality itself is becoming unstable. If that's true, this could be our very first sign that incursions are beginning to happen before Avengers Doomsday. It's subtle, but Marvel has done this kind of setup before. What's really interesting is that director Destin Daniel Cretton intentionally refused to explain the ending. In interviews after release, he said they wanted audiences leaving the theater asking questions instead of getting immediate answers. Honestly, I think that was the perfect choice. Sometimes mystery is much more exciting than a huge cameo, and when you combine that ending with everything we learned about the deleted scenes, the entire movie starts making more sense. Marvel could have packed this film with dozens of surprise appearances. They could have brought back multiple Spider-Men. They could have turned the ending into another massive multiverse event. Instead, they told one deeply personal story about Peter Parker, someone who's completely alone, trying to figure out who he is after losing absolutely everything. That emotional focus is probably the biggest reason audiences have connected with this movie so strongly, and the numbers prove it. Brand New Day has now crossed over $1.15 billion worldwide, becoming the highest grossing movie of 2026. It delivered the biggest opening weekend ever, one of the highest audience scores in MCU history, an A cinema score, and it's already being called one of Tom Holland's greatest performances as Spider-Man. Not because it had the biggest cameos, but because it remembered what Spider-Man has always been about: heart. Now, the only question left is, where exactly is Peter? We'll likely get that answer when Avengers Doomsday arrives. But until then, Marvel has given fans one mystery that could keep everyone theorizing for months. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe because we'll continue covering Spider-Man, Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, hidden details, deleted scenes, and every major Marvel update as soon as they happen.